Alright, hope everyone had a good Day weekend. Back at it with another recap. So we had the Tuesday recap here. As we mentioned yesterday, we had that cap up on the tariff delay for Europe. So that pretty much pushed all stocks higher, all the whole market went higher. And then we continued higher with some more good economic data. We have apparently housing for March, the price went down, and we also had just overall house pricing went down. Hard to believe, but apparently that's what the numbers say. I'm not sure what these other numbers are, but I think overall a lot of the economic data came out positive. And obviously, we have a couple big earnings for NVIDIA and some other names. We'll go over that. In our last video, we did talk about some crypto stocks. So there was movement also over the weekend with crypto. DJT was one of them, raising $3 billion almost. I think actually $2.5 billion. I think it was rumored for $3 billion over the weekend. So $2.5 billion, and then it tanked. Why did it tank? Well, I think the terms became more specific after release, and I'm not sure why it's not popping up here. I think we got $1.5 billion. So in the company stock, so they're gonna pretty much issue another $1.5 billion, and then the other $1 billion they're planning to financed through convertible debt from 50 other institutional investors. So I think the $1.5 billion that's gonna have to come up with, that's pretty much responsible for this huge drop. So DJT longs probably were having a short-lived moment there. We did talk about Master. I was surprised that it did give up some gains here. So likely they're trying to finance and buy more Bitcoin, and they're gonna have nearly 600,000 Bitcoin. That's pretty wild there. So again, selling pressure, probably because you're gonna have to raise money, and we're probably gonna try to find a bottom on that. We'll see if it supports this Bollinger Band here. And then we go back to DJT. Yeah, that's not a pretty chart either, so we can see it going down further. Another worthy name I mentioned, I think in the video. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last video. It might have been the video before. But this is another crypto name. They're doing the Bitcoin treasury strategy, so that pumped. There's no news on the feed here, but I think the news was that they are going to raise more money to buy Bitcoin. So that's why that jumped up. So keep an eye on that one. I've been a good trade. Just let's see, another mention here. This one was a huge mover. I mean, coming off Friday, I think it had some movement already, and it actually didn't come on my radar until today. I'm sure for most people, but it already had some movement. I think 6 million shares Friday, so some people caught it early, and I think the big news was that they're going to do a treasury with Ethereum, so crypto treasury with Ethereum instead of Bitcoin. And then also the consensus and co-founder of Ethereum, Lubin, is going to be this on the chair. So that is pretty much a couple big catalysts that drove this thing from pre-market, close 7, pre-market, it just rocketed up to 35. It's wild. To continue to keep an eye on this, obviously it's a low float, very risky, all these low float stocks. So if any of you are watching my videos, I kind of cover various different stocks, and obviously, this is not financial advice, just sharing with everybody. So be very careful if you're trying to participate in these movements for especially low float stocks. Some other worthy mentions, going back to nuclear stocks, I mentioned a couple of videos ago. Oklo, that one's still going since Trump administration trying to push and reform nuclear energy. So we might see continuation above all-time highs here. Let's see, maybe we should do 50. I like to set alerts just to keep an eye on these things as they move up. If 59 is going to be all-time high. Wild that we're making all-time highs since the last April scare with the tariffs. So again, nuclear stocks keep pushing higher. I would probably stay away, probably have a pullback. Some of these, how they work is they shoot up, and then you can see the next day, every time there's a huge green engulfing candle, there's always a pullback. And the most importantly, you want to leverage the EMA. That's the exponential moving average to really a trend. That's pretty much what you want to look at. So as long as, there's a trend forming, this obviously is above the top Bollinger Band, so it's overextended on the long side. So if you're long, you don't want to be buying. I think Lightbridge, I mentioned that one before. This one is also approaching all-time high. Quantum stocks, IonQ, this one's flagging here, all-time high, coming up for breakout potential. They did have, quantum stocks got a lot of movement with, I think, QQTS, that's the wave they had. I think, what do they have? They had a catalyst. They had some breakthrough recently. So quantum is making its back into the picture since last winter when they had their last run. CoreWeave, definitely want to mention that one. That's a recently IPO'd this year. That's an AI play, AI hardware. And that thing, it's just been going since its last earnings. So I wouldn't touch it right now, but you obviously could have longed after the earnings on not really any real pullback on this daily chart. Last Friday would have been a good time to get in. But just look at this here. It's probably going to have continued strength. I mean, some of these stocks that are after IPO that run like this, there's some opportunities to swing them once they pull back. And this one is probably going to be volatile. So that's one of them's to keep on watch. A lot of movement in space stocks as well. Rocket Lab. This one had positive news. It's just been acquiring companies. I think the latest one is Geost. And they're just positioning themselves to be more than a rocket company. So I'm actually invested in this one. I've been doing pretty good. Happy with that one. Still holding long term. Redwire, I think, also had some movement today. And I don't know if there's any. They had pretty much, I guess, deliver on board computer. So they're responsible for supplying technology for, I think, just small payload launches more on the electronic side. But again, space stocks taking off a little bit today. Definitely keep an eye on Planet Labs. I like this one. They pretty much have, I wouldn't say monopoly on the satellite. I mean, they have pretty much top product in satellite imagery. So I think a lot of the satellite imagery comes from them. But SpaceX and there's various different satellite companies, and this particular one focuses on imagery. SpaceX is more, or Starlink, I'm sorry, is more on communication, and there's a bunch of other satellite companies, mostly communication, and not too many publicly traded on imagery. So that's one worth mentioning. Do want to talk about IPOs and SPACs. I'm just going to keep it short here. Oh, I was going to type Circle, but that's not going to come up. So Circle is going to be an IPO. You've probably heard of coin, USDC. So that's the stable coin. That's the company that pretty much created that stable coin. So they're going to be listing. And IPOs, they've been pretty... This was not a crypto really IPO, but they've been doing really well. This one is, I think, a AI health IPO. So that one's done really good. eToro, that's the, I think, Israeli social media trading company. So that one, I think, also done really well. I believe AI put like at, I thought it was a lot lower than, I guess not. It might be a lot higher. Another one that's been mentioned in the news media is MTN. MNTN. That one's done well. So Circle Group, that one, I think, if you're Robinhood user, you can try to get shares with their early access. So that's a highly anticipated one with crypto going. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. I'm personally trying to buy some myself, but with Robinhood, you're just not gonna get. Yeah, it's like a lottery, so you're not guaranteed to get shares. And then I think I mentioned CLBR. This one's having some after hours action. I did say it might break that 14 level. I'm keeping an eye on this one. Alright, so I'm gonna get back to the stream here. Let's see, CLBR. It could definitely keep going up. A lot of people are anticipating with the Trump connection, Donald, I think it's Trump Jr., he's gonna be pretty much, pushing this thing higher just with this, and plus it's, grab a gun, Second Amendment, and I just feel like there's a lot of, things pushing the stock higher for not, doesn't necessarily have to make a lot of sense, but, so that's one, keep watching. And then I think another one I wanted to mention, NVDA. This one, I think, has connection to crypto. They originally just pivoted. Usually this is a SPAC, so it's not an IPO. They essentially do a merger, reverse merger to bring, a company public. And this one is headed by co-founder of Tether. So I think with that news, it pushed it higher. You see that morning shot and shoot up from 10 to 13, back down, and then the warrants, that's pretty much where the money was at. But keep an eye on this one, because depending on who they announce, especially with, the Tether connections, it could be, pushing higher, just like CLBR. So it still could be early. I might nibble on this one. But with SPACs, you just don't know. I don't know who you're looking at, and that's kind of the risk. Yeah, you got for $10. And if you get in right now, there's that level of risk you have to take, which is small compared to if they have a big announcement. I'm not sure with all of the crypto partnerships, what other companies they could bring on that would essentially investors should be interested in. So that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to cover. That's kind of the recap. And I did mention earnings, so let me just get over that real quick. I think NVIDIA with earnings could break 150. I'm not sure. Earnings is tomorrow, so I think the last few earnings has been going down. Pretty much. I mean, there hasn't been much movement, I think, since last year. I think last year was when they had earnings that pushed their stock up. Yeah, it was this one right here in May. So we really haven't seen. And their weekly chart, though, it's pretty strong. With their Blackwell chip. We'll just have to see the numbers. I think the market earnings have been pretty favorable for a lot of software companies. Not hardware companies. Like NVIDIA, I'm not sure. It's kind of baked in to a certain degree. And then I mentioned Salesforce, which they favor acquiring Informatica. So, Informatica longs, they definitely would be happy about that. So I'll be watching CRM. Again, software companies have been doing well with earnings. So I think I'm gonna call that. And then Marvel, there's one last mention. I think they're also worth paying attention to for earnings this week. But yeah, I want to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in, and I will keep posting frequently. See everyone next time.